This is the third episode, our third bi-weekly episode of Shack Outback.
Yeah, every other Monday, I should say.
Every other Mondays. So this week, I chose what we're talking about, and I chose some very spooky, scary skeleton no-sleep stories, and I sent them to Dan. And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to start out this week with just what we've been doing, like what we've been reading and playing and stuff. So,
yeah.
Dan, what have you been up to?
Let's see. I have been reading. Oh God, I forget what it is. I finished the Southern Reach trilogy like a week ago, and that was a very confusing ending.
You read all of them? Are they done?
Yeah, I read all of them. Yeah, they're done. It was weird. They all got released, I think, around the exact same time, but they're 3 different books. So, yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, if you look at the release dates, they're all the same year. So, I think the author wrote them all and then released them all kind of oddly. But it was cool. And then I started some science fiction series that I saw about on Reddit.
What was it called?
A hymn, H-Y-M-N, hymn.
A hymn?
A hymn before battle.
You know, I think I actually have heard of that. What's the premise of it?
I believe I was looking at books that are like Starship Troopers, and someone was like, this book's like Starship Troopers. I think it was on Reddit, but it has good reviews. It's called The Legacy of Aldenta, Book 1. So I got it for, I think it was free with Amazon Prime.
So it's just bugs and space marines?
Yeah, I think the premise right now is I haven't gotten to it yet, but I believe it's like the Universal Council of aliens and shit say humans should be recruited in to help save 3 different worlds. So it's just like, I think it's like ultra campy and shit like that.
Oh,
but I'm having fun.
That is like, power to you, but that is like my least favorite science fiction is the campy stuff. Yeah. Anything else? Have you been playing any games lately?
Game-wise, well, we just were kind of messing around with Unfortunate Spacemen after Mandalore Gaming's reviews that broke the servers.
Yeah.
And it's definitely cool, and I'm excited. I didn't tell you, but I hopped on an actual multiplayer game this morning.
How was that?
And was kind of messing around for a little bit. It's very confusing because I think everyone was having voice problems. Like, 2 people in the chat were saying that they were like, couldn't hear people and were really audio laggy and stuff, but it was neat. It's really cool that it's 3D. Like, it's different. It's different enough from Among Us that it's not just Among Us in 3D. There's a lot more ways to mess with people, and it's very, very unique.
As much as I've liked playing Among Us with your friends and like a little bit with my friends too, I really I wanted to like an FPS like more involved sort of thing that I wanted to try.
Yeah, and I hope Among Us and Unfortunate Spacemen and everything will eventually prompt a major company to release like
a TTT standalone game.
Yeah, like something like that. Yeah,
I had a lot of fun when I was younger playing TTT. That was a good time. I'd like to have like a full release that was like that too.
Yeah,
it's just the genre's so reliant on you playing like with fun people or with your friends or something. Yeah,
it's
I don't know
really
if people want to
oriented.
Yeah, I don't know if big companies want to take the gamble on that. But you've been playing Yakuza too, right?
Yeah, I've been playing Yakuza Kiwami. I put in a couple hours this week because I've been busy as hell with school. So I put in a couple hours this week. I played Unfortunate Spaceman. I played Among Us a little bit. And then mostly I honestly just playing more Hades. I'm almost 100%ed it. I need 3 more achievements.
I've dipped my toes back into Spelunky a little bit again, just like idly.
I was noticing that, yeah.
And I have lost my touch. I can barely get to the second world or the second level now.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I got to Olmec. I didn't tell you that. I got to Olmec like a week ago and I died. I still like it a lot, but I've just been busy with school.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else
what about
I've done. I started reading, we talked about this the last time, but Brandon Sanderson's new book is coming out, so I'm rereading a couple of his books. They're big. That
was the big old book you showed when we were playing Gloomhaven?
Yeah, the big fuck off fantasy books. Yeah, they're like 1,200 pages. I played this game called Project Warlock I told you about.
Yeah, I saw it back on sale, I think.
It's good. It's like a roguelite, like Wolfenstein 3D. It's really fun. The
weapons
back
are
on
very
sale.
Fun.
Yeah. I'd pick it up.
For
it's only like
$5 or whatever.
$5, yeah.
Yeah.
What else have I been playing? I finished the DLC for The Outer Worlds, the first one. I like, and we talked about this too before. I really don't like people shitting on that game because they really don't deserve it. Like, it's like a fun Fallout-esque game that's only like 12 to 15 hours now that they have DLC, and that's totally fine. Like a game that you don't have to dump
quality
100.
though, I've heard.
Yeah, it's very good. Gunplay is fun, companions are great, like all that stuff, very good.
Yeah, I am fine with that. If the game is good and there's actual stuff in the world, it's not just a huge barren landscape with some NPCs with some quests. Like, I think I was briefly telling you, but I'm so sick and tired of the X game has big map coming out next year.
Therefore good.
Any map ever, therefore good.
Yeah.
I forget what it was, but it was like, this is so fucking tiring. Who cares? Like, I don't care anymore. Just Cause 3's map was like a real life continent and it was shit. Like, I just don't care anymore.
Continuing our theme of smaller experiences being better. And I think the other thing I've done is I've started replaying Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. So I'm a man-child. It's a very fun game. I love those games because they consistently get like 5 or 6 out of 10, and people fucking hate them. And I love them so much. They're like dungeon crawly little like adventure things. Very fun.
Aren't they like auto attacky? Like it does the battling for you and stuff.
No, it doesn't.
You have to do it yourself? Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that like it was such a good idea because there were other mystery dungeon games. There was like Chocobo Mystery Dungeon and shit, but it was such a good idea to just slap Pokemon on top of that and just take all the systems and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, not too much. Me and Cassie started watching a new anime called Jujutsu Kaisen that's like getting massive popularity.
What's the premise of that?
Jujutsu sorcerers, which protect the world from cursed objects and stuff, and one random dude that's already strong for some reason eats a cursed object of like a cursed god. So instead of just dying like you normally will, he becomes a vessel for that god. The god is completely evil. Like, the god wants to murder everyone, but the kid isn't, and you can suppress him.
Okay.
So
that looks very anime.
It's gained huge popularity. If it keeps going this way, it's gonna pass My Hero Academia soon, which would be mental.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's getting pretty big.
Oh, I've been reading through, talking about what we did last time. I've been reading through Hive slowly. And
because they're doing the one page each.
Yeah, well, they do 3 now. Like, you can do 3 chapters, and then you have to pay or whatever a day. It's a very good story, and I was reading through a couple more, like Rotten and a couple other ones. I remember telling you about those like pop out ones, where I was reading like horror ones for Halloween.
I did that one too. The 4 or 5 story one that was like.
Yeah.
Used your camera. It was kind of janky sometimes, but it was a unique premise, and I appreciate it.
I'm a horror guy, but I don't like jump scares, so I was reading those at like 1 a.m. and they actually freaked me out because I was reading them like in the pitch black in my bed. But getting back onto what we were doing. Yeah, getting on the topic this week. So this week,
you're the master of it. So tell us what you told me to read, and I'll tell you what I did read.
So this week I told you to go through, or I told you to read The Whistlers, which is like a episodic story that got released on No Sleep 5 years ago. Yes. And this currently running series called How to Survive Camping, which is going on.
Yeah, I didn't know that was currently. I started it from chapter 1, and I was like, this is really cool. And then eventually it was like, go to the website. I was like, oh, I thought he would have made a website, but wow. Or it's a girl telling the story.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, it's still going. Like, he's referencing things that are like happening, and I'm like, this is pretty cool.
The way that this lady is designing her story, because it's a woman author as well. I forget her name now, but
in the story, her name is portrayed as Kate. I believe.
That's the main character. But it's like this is why I like No Sleep a lot. Getting back to the premise of No Sleep, it's basically this subreddit where people post stories, horror stories or thrillers or whatever, as if they were real. So I think her name is Bonnie Quinn, the lady who's writing How to Survive Camping, ties it in with like seasonal events. Like, you tell me you are on, I went trick-or-treating with the man with the skull cup right now. Is that the one you're currently on? So she released that, not this past Halloween, but the Halloween before.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like, Christmas stories and stuff. It's cool. Her storytelling lends itself well to the whole setup of the subreddit. I have her book too, the first like Man with No Shadow like series. So there's the Man with No Shadow, there's The Lady in Chains was the second group of stories. I think that's coming out in book form soon, and the third one isn't named yet, but it's probably going to be like The Bad Year, whatever.
It's wild.
Do you want to talk about the premise of How to Survive Camping now that we're talking about that one first, I guess?
Yeah, I'd be good. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I read like almost none of the Whistlers. I started doing camping, and I was like, I'm liking this one more, and read a lot of this one during my free time.
That's totally fine. Yeah, so the premise with... I mean, we could tie them together, because I'm assuming you read, like, a little bit of the Whistlers or whatever.
A tiny bit, yeah. Not too much.
The premise of the How to Survive Camping is that it's this lady named Kate who has this campsite that's been, like, been held in her family for generations. Yeah. And it's, like, the host... It's like a meeting point, like an airport for... It's for ghouls and ghasts and things crawling out of the human unconscious. Yeah, it's cool.
She calls them. It's an old ground. That's what she keeps saying. It's
old land.
That's what she says. It's old land, and it's like the exact premise of stuff that I like. It's just like why I like SCPs. There's a lot of weird shit, and they don't have reasons for what they do, and they're just really weird. And there's not an explanation for any of them. It's like this is how it is, and that's just how it is. There doesn't need to be a huge explanation for each creature.
Mm-hmm. I think getting like later on in the story, she tries to like encompass like how some of these things are coming up, like stuff not like the story features like ancient things like big fairies and like the cut your head off and eat your skin kind of fairies.
Some of the stuff you could kill, she mentioned, like some of them you could just hunt and kill, but then some of them were almost ethereal, like you can't get rid of the will-o'-the-wisp lights because they're just
they're just like a force of nature or something. Yeah, so it's like a big variation of like monsters and creatures and things like that. Yeah,
and some of them are perfectly fine, and some of them are all right, and they won't kill you if you're just nice to them and show respect. And then some of them that they'll just murder you on sight, but not really. Like, it's very odd.
I think it's a very silly premise, but it's a very fun premise.
I like reading it.
This lady owns this campsite or whatever, and it brings so much money to the local town.
No one cares.
That they're just like, fuck it.
The police are like in her pocket, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna respond to stuff, but you do the police paperwork for your own events, and then you just don't look at it ever again.
Yeah.
Like what does it start on? The opening sentence of one of the first chapters are like, she was doing the daily morning like 4-wheel drive around, and there was a torso of a person just in the middle of the roads, and they called the police, and they didn't even come up. They were like, just file it normally, and we'll be up later to look at it.
I like the, like, morally grayness of this story, because in almost every one of these stories, like, they introduce you to a monster, or they reintroduce you to a monster, or something else is going on, and inevitably someone gets killed in every story in a gruesome fashion.
When I started reading it, I was like, okay, so this woman's obviously good, like she's trying to keep them in check, until the one that was like about the
girl who worked for her.
Yeah, not the Rusalka, but she was the one that drank the dude's cup, but she wasn't respectful. And then he's like, well, we did what we had to do. We burned her alive on a stake. And I was like, oh, I was like, well, I guess that's how you protect it, because he said worse things would happen.
Yeah, the campground was being terrorized by this like Russian folklore monster that she had barely even heard of, barely had any notes on, and then she tried to get rid of it, and then finally she just burnt this girl alive she didn't like. Yeah, it's very funny. I like that. I like that. A lot of my problems with No Sleep stories, because I know you haven't read a lot of the subreddit, and I have a bunch of tabs open right now, so I have some that I've upvoted and some that I've downvoted, and I rarely
I'm trying to remember what I've read, because I used to read more on it, like when I was younger. Like grade 7, 8, 9, but I haven't in a long time.
A lot of it is clearly just like Reddit itself. Like most of Reddit is just like dudes our age, and they're like early 20s to like late 20s into their 30s, and a lot of the voices of these stories, a lot of the perspective is always like a dude who's like 30-ish doing something something goes wrong, and that's why I like this series a lot, is that she has all these inventive like situations and monsters and stuff that really keep you reading. And it's like a badass lady who just shoots things with a shotgun. It's very fun. Yeah,
the one thing I like that it isn't just I'm good person protecting innocence.
No, she's like
do what I need to do. Yeah, she's a bit of a dick to people, but I mean, when you do the stuff that she is apparently doing in this story, I could see why you would be.
Yeah, when you grow up on this campground where things just like randomly eat people for no reason, and you have to like keep it in your family, or the things will escape and like kill people in the town. Like, I wouldn't be nice either. Yeah, and this is like the first No Sleep story that I've liked so much, where I looked up the author and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll buy your book." I have it up in my like beside my bed right now. It's just the Man with No Shadow stuff, so it's like the first 20 stories or something.
It's not related to this story at all. It's just a completely different. It's a completely different universe type
What are
of
you
thing.
talking about?
The Man with No Shadow. Like, it's not related to.
Oh, no, that's the first arc of the
Oh,
The Man with No Shadow.
I'm looking at
like
it on Reddit right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
The Man with No Shadow is a creature on the campground, and the first arc is dealing with him and his plans, and the second arc is dealing with someone else, and I'm assuming the third arc is going to be dealing with something else as well.
Okay.
That's how she's grouped the stories, at least.
Oh, I'd cop that. It's only $8 on Amazon. I'm putting that on my wish list. What the
That's
hell?
great. I got it too, and like it's not the same as reading it like on Reddit, but it's much easier to just like throw it in a bag, like you're somewhere like waiting like on for the bus or something, and just pulling it out and popping it open.
Yeah. So the next one is Renfield's Clock.
So I don't know what that is. I think that's another story that the same author has written, because if you look on her Amazon, it's very funny. She has like some other like No Sleep looking stories that I haven't read or whatever in collections, and then she has an erotic novel that she's written too on her Amazon store.
Interesting.
Yeah, very funny. So you enjoyed How to Survive Camping?
Yeah, very much. I'm gonna keep reading it because I'm probably. I bet that's not very far into it at all. I think I read 6 or 7 full stories of it.
Yeah, I think there's like 40 between.
Yeah,
40 and 50
there's a
right
lot.
now. There's a lot, but I mean, like they're very like just fine.
I'm liking it. Yeah.
Go. I think they're written or formatted away on Reddit too, where it's very easy to like just jump around, even though there is a thorough line through the story.
Yeah, I was following that.
If someone were to just jump into the series and see like, oh, what's this post, and read it and be like, oh, what the fuck is this, and be like, oh, I want to read from the beginning. It lends itself to that well.
Yeah, it's not like you can really start at any story because they're not really connected. She'll sometimes reference stuff, but it's not like you really need to know about it. It's like, oh, this is a time that the horse that was eating other horses was around.
Yeah,
and
that was
I like that one a lot.
That whole contained story from her as like a child. That was a very fun like demonstration of the themes and like the storytelling of the story. It was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the premise of that one? The dad buys horses for everyone. Yeah. Everyone has a horse. One night they wake up and the every horse is dead except for her younger brother's horse, which is just like staring at everyone in the field, and she's noticed that her younger brother is always just looking at this horse. And the same thing happens the next year, and then the third year
they catch it. She catches it like eating a human being.
Yeah, it's like maiming someone and ripping chunks of flesh off them, and it's like she describes it as big as a Clydesdale, and it's like just a normal horse.
Horses are scary. I grew up around horses, like my family owned them and stuff, and I like I'm not a horse girl or anything, but I do enjoy being around horses and stuff. Horses are fun, but they are intimidating.
Horses are terrifying.
Yeah, they're intimidating animals. They're huge. They're scared easily. Yeah, they're scary things. Yeah, and like that's where that storytelling like and this story really strives to is that she does take like weird creatures from like Russian folklore you've never heard of, but when she comes up with something like that, it's just as well done, really.
Oh yeah, it's not like this is the creepy bear that walks around. It's like this is something that doesn't really want to hurt me, but it's gonna walk around and offer me drinks, and sometimes it'll chat with me like a normal person, but it obviously doesn't like me.
Most of the time it's pissed off, yeah.
I like the woman with no eye, or the woman with too many eyes, the old lady with too many eyes. That's just
so
old
cool.
Woman.
What a cool,
I like it a lot. Just an old woman with a bunch of eyes on her head, and she's nice, but she does weird shit too, but she'll never like hurt you yet.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, getting back to like the Whistlers. So why do you think going to the Whistlers now? Like, why did you think that story didn't grab you as much as How to Survive Camping?
Honestly, I know what it is for a fact. It's literally the monsters. I'm such a thing for just random little monsters. It doesn't need to be one huge thing. It's just it's as I said, it's the exact reason why I like SCPs so much. It's just a lot of little weird monsters that don't correlate to each other at all, and they don't have a reason for being there. They just kind of exist just like people do. They'll just do weird shit, and sometimes it's not evil or anything. It doesn't need to be like they maim people and murder everyone. They just do weird shit, and then they kind of.
Do you want to describe what the SCP is to people who wouldn't know what it was?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big internet thing, but some people might not know.
SCPs are basically, the acronym stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, and it's basically like a fiction of like a universe that exists. That there's a government group that like contains weird creatures in that world. So the most popular ones are the statue that like only moves when you're looking at it, and if you blink, it tries to get closer to you and crack your neck. I think there's games based on him.
Or that lizard that like
the
just
lizard can't die, or the never-ending stairwell thing that
Yeah.
just always goes down, or the infinite IKEA is another really popular.
That's a fun one. There's a story about like you go inside this IKEA and you can never leave, and all the staff are like faceless mannequins that hunt you at night.
Yeah,
it's basically just like this compilation of internet like stories in this loose containing thing that are like the foundation, which is a thing that secures all these things, but there's like almost 5,000 stories about like all of these like creatures, and there's literally 5,000, I think it's over 4,000 entries of just all this random stuff.
There's they're all sort of written like a dossier of a specific thing, so there'll be little addendums and stories in the description and how you keep care of them and stuff like that.
It's a
very interesting.
It's a very fun like thing, because I remember when I was in high school, there was something like there was under 1,000 or something, but it was very fun to like be in a business class or something and just start clicking through random stories and just reading all this weird shit people come up with. It's very fun.
Yeah, like I'd say if you want to start with SCPs, going a little bit off topic, just go on YouTube and go to like the Volgun.
Yeah.
Or go to the Volgun is very good.
He narrates like a bunch of the best stories, and it's done very well. Yes,
they're done very well. They're little. It's a little like atmospheric and stuff, and there's a little bit of lore to his channel that you eventually start to understand more. But it's very interesting.
So you like those examples of monsters? Like do you like examining the monsters, explaining it? And
no, I don't think so. No? I don't think so. Like I think it lends something to it. Like SCPs, they examine it and stuff like that, but so much of SCP shit too is like it just kind of happens. We don't know why, but this is what kind of happens sometimes. But I think whenever you explain a monster completely, it always gets a little less scary, because then you can just categorize it. It's like, this isn't a being, it's just kind of an animal now that's bad.
That's like, I didn't expect you to say that about the Whistlers, because the whole premise of the Whistlers as a story was that like it's these. The one thing I would say that probably would put a lot of people off who want to read the story like the Whistlers is that it starts very generically. It is like that whole stupid creepypasta premise of, I found a bag with a bunch of papers in it.
Yeah, if I remember, it was like journal dates, and it was like describing what it found. There's papers or something, a bag with papers in it.
Yeah, it was basically like, it was like a Ben Drown situation where I went to this yard sale and I found all these papers, and it was just like these journal entries from this woman who is in the woods like trying to escape these things called the Whistlers, and it starts in medias res, so it starts like in the middle of the story, so you don't know what happened before. And I would say that some of the components of it are a little generic, and it's like a 5-year-old story too.
It was older.
What I liked most about this story was that it didn't explain the monsters, which by the end, which I know you didn't get to the end, but I very much enjoyed that. They were like being hounded by this force, and it felt very palpable to me. And like one of the best parts of the story, and that I don't see a lot of horror things getting back to, is that not only were they trying to run away from like the Whistlers or whatever, they were also like fucking starving to death the entire time they were running away from them in the woods, and that was like a very core part of the story, and I liked that a lot. I think the only other horror story I've read that was like that was, do you know what Gerald's Game is?
Yeah, that's the Stephen King book where the woman is tied up in the bed because her and her husband were gonna fuck around, and then dies.
And then he died.
Yes.
So I read that story when I was like 13, like, or 14, like when I was just in high school, and the entire story is told from her premise, like her point of view, and it's like 200 pages of her being in a bed and just slowly dying because she has no water. There's like this whole section of the book that's her like making a paper straw and sticking it in a cup and like drinking water, and then it's described as orgasmic or something, but that's just a huge part of that story. And the horror elements of that story is she gonna live, and like she was molested or something, so she was going over that in her brain as well. I like when a horror story just doesn't try to like spook you or jump scare you or something, but when it has like cool elements like that. Like, what are some of your favorite like either horror movies or horror books, Dan?
Books. Have I read many? Actually, yeah, I did. Last year, I read a bunch of horror books. They were all by Darcy Coates, was her name, I believe.
Darcy Coates. Never heard of her.
Yeah, she did a lot of stuff. I think she's partnered with Amazon because almost all of her books are free if you have Amazon Prime with your Kindle. So, like, they're all the same stuff, but I loved reading them. They're all, like, I'll read some titles, so... The Haunting of Ashburn, The Haunting
Craven
of Blackwood.
Manor.
Yeah, it's all big... She knows what she's good at writing, and she just keeps doing it. Oh, my God.
There's like bunch of books written in the same year.
Big Scary House, Ghost or Creature in It.
Ghost Camera. Dead
Yeah,
Link.
like, I read Hunted, I read Blackwood, I read Ashburn, and I read Caro, I believe.
Was this... like Kindle, like
yeah,
were they ebooks or were they like stories like that were like narrated and stuff?
They're books. They were novels. They were like 300 pages each. Maybe they weren't huge, but they were books. Like Ashburn, I believe, was about an old woman who like lived for centuries and stuff by doing some ritual with her family, and then something happened to her where she got buried finally, but she came back to life.
I'm trying, like,
it was just like
why did you like them? Were they just like cool situations and stuff?
They were easy reads for one. They were just really easy reads because I'd read them on the bus going to school. They were really easy reads, and they were interesting enough that it wasn't just like a normal horror story. Like Hunted was about people that were in the woods, and it was just how goddamn terrifying the woods are, that if you go 2 minutes off the trail, you are literally lost if you're in a national park. Like, just easy reads.
You know what that reminds me of?
What's up?
It reminded me of talking about Brandon Sanderson. He had this book. So a lot of his books are in the same universe, but they're on different planets and stuff. It's magic or whatever. But one of them was like, all the people on the planet were stuck on this continent that was just a big forest. And if you like were too loud or like spilled blood in the forest, ghosts would come out of every corner of the forest and fucking kill you. It was a great short story.
Yeah, the forests are a scary thing, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I guess it's getting to that primal like lizard brain of ours. It's just like, oh, this is scary.
Lizard brain. Movie wise, I really like horror movies. Jeez, me and Cass just watched one on Netflix that was This Is Our House, or His House. It was called His House, I believe. His House. It was about two African-American refugees who come from an Igbo culture. I believe it was Igbo. And they basically go to Europe and get in. They cross the seas and stuff as refugees, and they're on a boat. Lots of people die. But their house is haunted by, I believe it's an apith, is an Igbo spirit. And it's basically like the spirit of people that you've done bad. So they'll haunt your house until you leave or kill you. And it was very well done. We liked it a lot more than we thought we would. It's had some very creepy moments in it.
That's a very cool premise.
Yeah, again, that's different.
Again, that's what I like about horror. Is if I have a horror movie and I watch it and it's like very different and something that I hadn't think of making a horror story out of, or it's just like a cool perspective I hadn't seen before. That's what I like. That's what I want to get like involved in.
Yeah, what about you? You're a big movie guy.
Well, I wanted to get back into... Well, I just say some of my favorite horror movies, because I subscribe... I have a Shudder subscription, and I really like watching stuff on Shudder. I don't remember what these movies are called, but Shudder just like puts out like random stuff.
Yeah, they
just
put
like
out a ton of shit.
Weird movies that like you wouldn't get anywhere else. Like there was this one where it was like an anthology movie, and it's one of the best ones I've ever seen. But it was just like a circular story, so the story ended where it began. So the first story like sort of like starts again at the end of the movie, and if you don't remember what it was called, but it was like just a lot of cool little stories. And I remember I was watching a Shudder movie that was like these two horror authors talking about how to write a good story or something, and they're just vamping off each other. And the movie used all this sound design to like, because they're just they have no like, it's not like, oh, there's a spooky house and they cut to like animation or something. It's just those two in the house and they're talking about this stuff, and they use the sound design to scare the shit out of me. It was very good.
What about Ma? You scared of Ma? That movie Ma?
I am scared of that movie, Ma, because I don't want to watch it. But getting back to more of this no sleep stuff, I just have some of the stories pulled up. Some of it is a lot of tropey stuff, like if you sort by like the top of the week or whatever. But yeah. I think a lot of, like, I just pulled up some of the ones that I've upvoted. I have this story here that's called "I Get Paid to Feel Fear." No, it isn't supernatural. It's just very fucking hard. So this story in No Sleep is, I'm going to spoil this, by the way, is that it's proposed as like this, it kind of starts a supernatural story. There's this woman like in a house and flames are licking her and stuff, but by the end it's revealed that this guy is just like a firefighter, and he had this woman throw her child out the window to like save the child so she wouldn't burn to death, and the lady got out, but when she threw her child, he grabbed it and the child broke its neck.
Classic.
So that's like the kind of like gotcha stories I sometimes like in No Sleep, or that kind of wake me up. I'm then getting into something that are like, that's like a lot of tropey stuff. Like a lot of this No Sleep stories are like, I found this dead people's Twitter account and all that stuff like that. Like stuff you've seen 100 times. But then they have stories like, I remember reading one that was like, the premise was this guy just woke up, he looked out his window and his neighbor was just standing there like outside on his lawn like doing nothing, and he's like, okay, and he went about his day, came back home, the neighbor's still standing there doing nothing. And the story's like really long, and it's just like this whole like 5-year period of this dude just standing there not being able to move, like no one can move him and he can't move, and just tears are leaking down his face, and he slowly starts to like crumble away and die. Like you can find like lots of cool stuff on here.
That reminds me about that Junji Ito story where the dude has the long sleeps. That's one of my favorite stories. The long dream.
That is the scariest Junji Ito story I think I've read.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I would say that is my favorite story, bar none. The Long Sleep or The Long Dream. It's called one of those.
Yeah. I think, is it Endless? It's something like Dream or Sleep or something, but it's just like, yeah, that story maybe not sleep. That story's fucked. Yeah. The premise of that one is this dude is just in a hospital and he's just like sleeping, and his dreams get longer and longer. They feel longer and longer.
Yeah.
And by the end, he feels like he's been like in this dream state for hundreds and thousands of years.
He'll wake up and he's just, his body's changed.
He's
and
a nightmarish creature.
Changed.
Yeah.
And at the end, he just crumbles away. He has the long sleep, and he just is sleeping.
That story's like got a lot of that existential like dread. Yeah. That's very good for horror stories too.
Yeah, you can't escape that. You can't escape sleeping. So
no.
I'm just kind of looking, because when I read No Sleep, I remember a lot of it was my girlfriend isn't actually my girlfriend.
Yes, I've read that story.
And my wife wasn't my wife. Stuff like that. It's just,
I remember that story.
X is not X, but she says she is.
And a lot of it is like my girlfriend. So I actually pulled up this story that I downvoted. I downvoted a month ago, and the story's title is "My Girlfriend Started the KonMari Method of Tidying Up. She started to freak me out." Do you know what KonMari is?
Oh, is that the one that you pick up and you're like, does this spark joy?
Yeah,
is
Marie
that one?
Yeah, it started by Marie Kondo. So this story is like a big long story of this girl like cleaning up her house. And the last 2 lines are, "I do not spark joy. I can't stay here." And that's how the story ends. Like, I don't know. You can find stuff like that on here too. Or the one I sent you earlier, I sent Dan this fucking screenshot from this thing I didn't like. It was this old story called Pig Iron or something, about this guy turning like thousands and thousands of gallons of pig blood into iron and making a sword. I think that, like, I don't know, like a premise like that, if your premise is really weird, like, you better be a good writer.
Pig iron.
I've really developed this sense ever since I read this book called Ablutions by this guy named Patrick DeWitt. I think he's a Canadian author, and it's these like, it's when people self-insert like these weird fantasies into their writing that I don't like and that I can really pick up on. So this story that I downvoted a few months ago is called "I'm a high school teacher who just bought a lap dance from a former student. I've officially hit rock bottom." And that's just like a title that, you know, doesn't invite any sort of good feelings. And by the end of the story, she turns out, I don't remember, but she turns out to be a fucking ghost or something.
Sounds good. What else were we gonna talk? Just kind of scary stories and everything. So what are some of your best No Sleep ones?
Some of my best No Sleep ones?
Obviously the Whistlers, and obviously the How to Survive Camping. Are there any other big ones that stick out?
I there's this one called "Don't Let Your Children Watch Mooshy's Barnyard," which is just this weird like creepypasta story about this like children's TV show that doesn't supposed to exist. I think there's a lot of stories. I can tell you about a lot of stories I upvoted to read you titles, but I'm not going to. A lot of the elements I like are like, I remember this story I read where this woman looked across her window and she saw someone like get murdered, and the next day she came into work, she didn't call the police for whatever reason, and she saw it again, and she got in like a time loop. Like weird story. Like if you have a story on No Sleep that's got a weird premise and like a weird ending to it and something that's cool I haven't read before, that's what I'm gonna like. That's what I like in horror stories, is the if something's gonna be scary or at least suspenseful that's gonna keep my attention, it has to, you know, I don't know. What would be the word for that, Dan?
It has to be scary and keep your attention.
Yeah, like what would be a good like summation of that idea? Fresh. It has to be fresh.
That's just like my huge thing is just being different. Just even if your monster's weird, if the story doesn't revolve around how weird it is and everyone just accepts it as normal, then you're gonna take it as being normal, and then it just makes the air of the story so much more odd.
And I think we talked about this last week too. Like if you have like a good monster, and I know you like monsters a lot, but a lot of the good parts of those SCP entries that we were talking about before is a lot of them take like, they have like bonus entries where they have like testing that they did on the creature.
Yeah,
or they have like weird videos, or you come back to the page every day and it's a little bit different every time you refresh the page. Like something cool to keep your attention, whether it be good characters or a weird premise or something like that.
Like, in my opinion, the worst SCPs, not the worst, because they're still good. They're still an interesting read.
The least interesting
are the ones that are just, this SCP murders everything it looks at. It rips your head off and throws it in the garbage bin. Stuff like that. Like, I will always take some, like, let me think of one. I will always take an infinitely spanning IKEA that is kind of dangerous, but people have got out of, over some horrible demon that's not interesting in the slightest.
Yeah, I feel that. I think some of my favorite stories on the SCP wiki are like, I forget what number it is, but it's this guy who's just like this grayscale man who, if you're dying and you have no one around you, will just visit you, offer you a cigarette, and just chill with you and hold your hand as you die.
Yeah, it's like the man above all or something. And yeah, he just, if no one's around you while you're dying, he'll materialize in, offer you a cigarette, and then just sit with you while you die and talk to you a little bit, and then just leave.
I think my other favorite story was like, there's this whole like I don't know, remember what they're called, but this whole like subset of stories in this SCP wiki is about like Sasquatches fighting humanity.
Yes, yeah.
But like one of the side stories was about this Russian guy who had bug armor, and he got like sucked into our universe. And then he just had to live his life. And they had a bunch of like stories from like decades of his life. And he slowly went from like just reintegrating to society to becoming a fucking priest in this big bug exoskeleton. Like, so cool. Like, stories like that. Very fun.
Yeah, I like all that weird shit.
I'm trying to think. What about like scary games? Like, what's the scariest game you ever played, Dan?
Oh, I'm not good at scary games. You probably know that.
Yeah, I knew that. Did you play PT?
I played PT.
Did you play PT? I want to talk about that because I played PT with two of my friends, and it was literally one of the scariest like experiences of my life.
Do you still have a PS4 where it's downloaded?
No, so we played it on his brother's PS4, and his brother drunkenly spilled Coke all over it. So no, that's destroyed. But I remember playing with my two friends. Everyone knows what PT is, but I remember playing with my two friends. And one friend like had his sweater hood over his head and like zooped it tight so he couldn't even see, but he was still scared of the fucking like the sound design of it.
It had the Eraserhead-esque baby in it. It was very odd. I'm sure you've heard all the stuff, like the sounds and the shadow when you were walking. They actually did the model of Lisa behind you walking directly behind your character.
Yes.
That stuff is so interesting. It's like, you didn't need to do that. Like, you didn't need to put her actual model behind you and walking behind you. You could have just done a trick.
I will say that is like the one of the best games ever made. PT is, and it's such a shame that no one can play it now.
Yeah, I know. It's really shitty. I mean, the first scary game I ever remember playing was Dead Space 1. That was the first scary game I ever remember playing.
Yeah, I think that's probably it for me too. I think I've played like scary games before at other people's houses, but the first scary game I owned and beat was Dead Space. Dead Space is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like I'm just kind of looking at my Steam library. I've got all the Amnesia games except for the newest one that just came out. So I've got Machine for Pigs and The Dark Descent. There was a game series before Amnesia that I've played through that was really scary and it's really good, and it's called Penumbra.
Yeah, isn't that by the same studio?
Yeah, same studio. Yeah, I've got all of them. Penumbra Overture, Penumbra Black Plague, and Requiem, and I should really start playing them again because they are very interesting games. They're very, very cool.
I watched a playthrough of the new Amnesia game and it looked fun. Have you seen anything about that?
Yeah, that's the one in the middle. It's like Middle East or
it's called Amnesia.
Desert.
Yeah, it's called Amnesia Rebirth. It's very good. I think that like people are faulting it because it's not expressly as scary as the other ones, but it does have a cool like theme and stuff. I started playing Alien Isolation and I stopped because I got too scared.
Yeah, no, I started. Yeah, no, I couldn't play that either. I started it and then couldn't play it.
It's one of those games where I'm probably going to start it like 80 times, but I'm not going to be able to finish it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking. I don't have too many scary games per se. Like, I don't know if you get Darkwood. That's a good game. Have you ever played Darkwood?
Is that the one that has is based on a lot of shadows and stuff?
Yeah, it's top down.
And it's like a top down.
Yeah,
you watch Mandalore do a video on that too.
Darkwood
I want to play
goddamn terrifying. Yeah. I have Darkwood.
That looked good.
It's pretty scary. Like, it depends on what you want to call horror, I guess, because like Deadlight is like a little side-scrolly game that's pretty cool.
I think it's easier to like elicit that horror, or at least easier to get a scare out of someone if it's a video game rather than like a story or.
Yeah, me too.
Just because you're controlling the person going through the scares and stuff.
Yeah, it's your job to do something.
Or what about Doki Doki Literature Club? That actually like made me shit my pants. That was so scary, man.
Yeah, Doki Doki Literature Club is a game that you can't experience right now because I'm sure it's spoiled for everyone. You had to play it within the first week it came out.
Yeah. I watched one video about it and it got a little scary. I'm like, okay, this game is free. I'll download it.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, yeah, it was free. My God, that was
still free.
Game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's still free, man.
Did they ever do like any...
I think they're making a new game, the same studio or whatever. But yeah, if someone listening right now has not played Doki Literature Club and don't know what it is, go look it up. Don't look up spoilers for it, but it's like, it has this guise of like a dating simulator game, but it is fucked. It's very scary.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of looking if they ever did any like...
updates
or anything, and not
no,
really.
I don't think so.
It was a good ass game though.
It is still a good ass game.
They have 140,000 Steam reviews. My God.
I remember when they released their soundtrack online, I like subscribed to their channel and they had like 5,000 views or something, and then like I looked it up like a few months later and they have like 5 million like looks at their soundtrack or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean, Jimbus, if we're talking about scary stuff, what are we doing next week, or next recording, I should say? Do you have any ideas?
Well, it's your pick, Dan.
Oh, good God. I might have to get back to you on that one, because I truly don't know. I'm kind of
we can stop a little bit, and we could just, like, spitball about it. I can always cut some of this. Don't stop your recording, but I can spitball for a little bit.
Yeah, God, I have no clue. I've been busy as hell at school. I've been wanting to camp a lot more. We could talk about some of the shit like that, outdoor activities and adventures and camping.
Okay, if you want to do that. I mean, we could always just talk about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just got some, like... I'm actually fiddling with right now. I got a fucking survival knife from Survivor Man that I'm fiddling with that I was going to take with me camping.
Yeah, I want to get, at least for Christmas, I've got some stuff on my Amazon wish list, because I need a better tent and I need a better sleeping mat and stuff.
If you want to just talk about camping stories or something, yeah, we can totally do that.
Yeah, we can talk about camping.
All right. Yeah, it's Dan's pick for next week, and it's going to be, you're not going to have to read anything, you're not going to have to watch anything for next week, but Dan, what are we doing?
I think we're just going to talk about general outdoorsiness and camping and that type of thing, because I've been really big into wanting to camp again after... I started watching an anime called Yuru Camp, so it made me really want to go camping again.
We should go winter camping and not.
I want to. I really want to go autumn and winter camping. That's the thing. I don't have stuff for it. I don't have the winter sleeping bag or even a good enough tent for that. But I really want to next year. Yeah, I really want to. No bugs.
Anyway, so next time we're just gonna talk about camping stuff. I mean,
camping adventure, camping story,
camping in general,
campfire.
All right, so yeah, your book club for next week is just to remember all the times you've gone camping.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good night, darling.
Goodbye, Jill.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Dan.
Good night, everybody.
I'm sorry, there's people moving around in my fucking house.
There's people crawling through the walls currently.
Brams, the boy is in my wall.